Diaries, and Sunday, so the day after tomorrow, is literally the 30th anniversary of the book being published. Also the 32nd anniversary of me getting the idea for the book. I look back at I used to give a page a day diary, and I went back to March 1985, and there it was, got an idea for a novel. And it actually says there it's a crime thriller. So I've been lying for the past 30 years when I said I didn't realise I was writing a crime story. I thought I was writing an update of Jekyll and Hyde, but in fact, right at the start in the notes it says a crime thriller. And then 2 years later, to the day, same date, 2 years later the book was published, and in my diary it says publication day, nothing happened, basically. I went to the bookshops, no copies, went to look for reviews, no reviews. The reviews did start to come in, and they were not terribly sympathetic, shall we say, to a young writer. The first couple of reviews that came out, no names, but I've actually got the names of the people who gave me those bad reviews. They are people who are in the public eye now, but not for much longer. In the pages of fiction, if not in the pages of fact. So it's but I didn't know back then. I mean, who knew? I had no idea that Rebus was going to stick around. He was meant to be there for one book. He was bumped off at the end of the first draft. I brought him back to life in the second draft, and thank God I did that. But he was meant to be around for just the one book. But he's tenacious. We know that he's tenacious, and he refused to leave the stage, and he still refuses to leave the stage. And I keep finding new things to do with him, and I keep wanting to spend more time with him to find out more about him, because he's a much more interesting and complex character than I am. So it's a thrill to be celebrating 30 years of this guy who refuses to leave the stage. And it was pointed out to me earlier this morning, hang on a minute, isn't he 70 now? No, he's 65. Because he was 40 in book one. I stopped the clock when he retired the first time round, and so we're a few years behind in fictional terms. And there's a lot going on. I mean, there's live music that appeals to me, but also appeals to Rebus. There's going to be walking trails with Rebus tours. There's going to be whiskey tastings of one of his favourites, Highland Park. There's going to be a Rebus pub quiz. I'll be probably doing a DJ set of some of his favourite records in between the live bands in the Queen's Hall. The Rebus pub quiz will come up with some cracking questions. I've just got to reread the books first so I can come up with some cracking questions. And there's a ton of other stuff. There's going to be exhibitions. There's going to be stuff happening at the museum. There's going to be the police are going to come along, serving and retired, to talk about the way policing has changed in Scotland, and talk about whether Rebus is or is not, or was not a realistic detective. I mean, he operated almost like a private eye within the police force, so I did cut a few corners. And even in the latest book, I mean, here I am, been doing this job now for 30 odd years, still making mistakes. I got a tour of Gartcosh, the Scottish crime campus, talked to people who worked in the fraud office, and the HMRC fraud office there, thought, right, in the new book there's a case that's being run by the fraud department at Gartcosh. Got an email from them saying, no, we wouldn't do that. That would be done from our office in Leeds. So, and I think the only thing about that is I wouldn't have a novel if the stuff had all been happening in Leeds, because there's no way Rebus could have been part of it. So yeah, after all these years, still making mistakes, and people still picking up on them. So that's lovely. That's lovely. Yeah. The one mistake that was in the early books was the Oxford Bar, which isn't part of the tour. It's not big enough. But I'm hoping that a lot of people who come to Edinburgh for the Rebus weekend will pop into the Oxford Bar for a drink. When I was writing the early books, I was living in London and France, and there's a foot rail along the front of the Oxford Bar in the books. Didn't exist in real life. I'd misremembered it. It's down the side of the bar, not the front of the bar. God bless him, Harry Cullen, who now owns the Oxford Bar, has put a foot rail in front of the actual bar, so that there is no longer that mistake there. So I hope we'll see a lot of you in at the end of June, beginning of July in Edinburgh. Hopefully the weather will be kind to us, especially for the walking tours. If not, we'll just have to stay indoors and drink and think about Rebus and listen to great music and go to the film house to see Reichenbach Falls, a film written by a friend of mine based on an idea of mine, which has only been shown ever, I think, twice on television years ago, so it's impossible to find. You can't find it online. So we're going to have a showing of that at the film house on the big screen, and Edinburgh looks fantastic. The director did a fantastic job on a shoestring budget, and it's an interesting story of a cop in Edinburgh who starts to realise he's a fictional character, and his author is about to bump him off. What does he do? Thanks for coming along today. Thanks for joining us to celebrate Rebus 30, and hopefully I'll see some of you at the end of June, beginning of July. Thank you very much.
Thank you.